Of course, you and I did it as a child in my cribs because they
Right.
entertained me, and I remember watching them. So I always felt like I was watched anyway, or in contact,
So,
or that was my family, but just have it staring you in your face. So I just knew they were always there, and I'd watch them out the windows. And you've had that on one of our shows. So
right.
I knew that they existed. I just never didn't think they didn't exist. And then Sputnik came over, and I was trying to explain that. And then the second grade, when the orbs would come up, and I couldn't walk after hepatitis, and I died, and they'd come and pick me up and stand me up, and I'd come out of I was so weak. I was like anemic from hepatitis, and I'd fall down and I'd pass out. They'd pick me up, stand me up, and then they'd go off like Glinda in Wizard of Oz. So I just assumed those. But I tell you, the time that makes sense is when I was living. We were putting man on the moon in NASA, right? But my husband was working at night, and so was everybody around with Grumman and TRW. They had contracts, and the first time I saw a spacecraft that I could know it was separate from orbs or like the kind that do crop circles. They look different. And that was when the bright gold light came down, and the man said, I want to have a baby with you. Right. And then he split and left. And I followed out, and all it was a big bright light. So,
Right.
so my whole life.
Yeah, we got over that episode. So that's going to be the future show. So you were home alone, and
Yeah.
you got a was it a knock on the door?
Yeah. He came to the door and knocked on the door and just looked in my eyes and said he wanted to have a baby with me. And I was mesmerized. And then the next thing I knew, he was leaving, and boom.
You
So,
went off the light. Yeah, so they can do that. I mean, I
it's
want to deal
amazing.
with that. I call those love bites. Well, that's not a love bite. They
I
can
was
totally hypnotize
mesmerized.
you, mesmerize. You're mesmered. You're hypnotized. You can't move. You can't resist. They
No,
say, "I want to make a baby with you." You're there.
so funny.
You're down for the count,
I
and
was, I was
the
mesmerized.
act is done. And then you're going. And I've had this happen. You go, "Oh man, am I pregnant now?" Oh, they have super sperm or something. It's like, they want you pregnant. You're pregnant. Now they may not. You may not carry the child, right? They might. I always said, "Please, I don't want to be pregnant," and they would take it, so I didn't have to have the trauma and embarrassment. Um, so you're stronger than I am. You had 4 kids, and I never had any live births. But you can feel it when you're pregnant, and you start getting, sensitivity in your breasts and nipples and stuff, and you start feeling bloated. You just have a
I
feeling, and
felt
there's,
all that. That's for sure. I know what it's
yeah,
like to be pregnant, and I had them natural Lamaze. So Angela was natural. Lauren, they had to give me Pitocin she didn't want to come at 9 pounds and 3 ounces. And she went over 2.5 weeks till they finally induced her in Galveston County Hospital, Lauren Michelle Parrish. So Angela Dawn Parrish was a little,
I'm
she
not
was
leaving.
early. She was
So
6 months
anyway,
early.
so
Stephen
you
very
you
PG.
had you saw the orb. See, I've seen the cigar shaped craft. I used to pull down the orb. See, you sparked the memory in me. We had a place called Neville Island, and the Nevilles were the very rich, powerful family during the War of the Roses. So I think they must have been the descendants of Neville.
Yeah, Neville High School.
And I'm a descendant of Nevilles, the Nevilles that ruled England, that were the kingmakers. Anyway, so I'm living across from Neville Island, and the orbs like to hover above Neville Island. And they were bright colors, like bright yellow, orange, green, red, and blue. And I didn't know what the pattern was, but they were huge. They were like an oversized harvest moon. They were just gigantic. And I'd say to my friends, "Well, do you want to see a UFO?" And they go, "Okay." So I knew if I went to, so I'd say, "Let's go for a walk." So we would walk up to California Avenue was on the top of Avalon, and then on both sides the streets came down, and the one side went down to the ocean and the railroad track. So I lived on the side that went down to not the ocean, the river. Ohio River on the railroad tracks. And so I'd say, we're going to go here. And so when we walk down a certain street, and I need to go back there and figure out which one it was. I don't think it was Harrison. I have to literally go back there and trace. But as soon as we start walking down, I said, okay, now what do you see? And there are these giant warps, and they go, what are they? I said, well, they're UFOs. So I would pull them down, and they would show, and they like to come three at a time. So, but I never knew what the orbs were about. So you're saying, so do you think he left in the orb?
Interdimensionally, I don't know.
You don't know.
Everything's speculation, except when I had
Yeah,
years
okay.
later when I was briefed with Tom, and then when they visited me here. My latest vision, which I made YouTubes about, with the gentleman that came and saw me, and then the one that was very divine, like traveling through space, and
Mhm.
so there's the higher levels of travelers, I guess one might say, and then those that we divine versus those that are just working or are coming and going, and working with our species here on the planet and getting us in space, because we're not getting there fast enough, I think. So to save everybody in the ways that they place them in other places. I'm a strong believer that they use us in other places, and so that may be different religions, the Latter Day Saints or the Scientology, or there's many world religions that believe different things. But I'm just keeping an open mind. But my open mind tells me that we're not alone in the universe, and that alien civilizations exist, and that they come and go as they please, and they can take on any form, including
Oh,
Bigfoot. They can take that,
right.
or they can be
We're
great.
running out of time. We got like 5 minutes. Let's wrap up. We'll wrap up this show with this episode. So you were in watching James Bond Thunderball, and they took you and kind of corralled you outside to a side exit into an alleyway.
Yeah,
And then so they asked you, take it from there. They asked you if you liked the movie. What happened?
yeah. Well, they told us let's see, what have you got? This is pretty interesting. I like how you listened to me through the years and put it together in these little ways now that we're presenting it. But the reason was to see if we would work for the government. Now, which government, what program? Because I worked in so many areas as a investigator. Basically, we thought of ourselves as investigators, agents, and contractors. But he worked at
You
NASA.
were you were 15, so
I
they
worked for
waited till
TOW.
you graduated, right? They they waited till you graduated high school before they took you into their program. But they recruited you. This earlier episode. What year did you graduate?
67 was the year that we got out of school, but I went back to Alvin Junior College and for law enforcement, and then I did
So
criminal justice at
if you were to go to a class reunion,
University
what
of Alabama.
class reunion would you go to from your high school?
Oh, 68. I think 68 are the ones they were upset I didn't come into, but I
You're
don't. I
supposed to
didn't go
graduate
to
in
that one.
'68,
Yeah,
and I was supposed to graduate in '72, but I left because I was getting bullied. But then I went and got my GED, so I graduated in '70. So that's another interesting thing. We both kind of left. We didn't go through that.
yeah.
Um,
But the program here. Now, what I discovered since I've been researching all of this, which I don't have a name for what I do other than I've been called a ufologist because I follow ufology and technology and alienology. But all the people I worked with were investigators like myself, including Dr. Bruce Maccabee and Don Berliner and Stanton T. Friedman. George Fowler, of course, was Air Force, and told me not to forget him. But J. Allen Hynek was the one I met and recruited me into the program, was J. Allen Hynek. So the man that, oh shoot, what's his name? The Air Force gentleman that was at NASA in Houston and was in the Air Force, Schleicher. I think that's his. Was it Carl Schleicher?
something like that. Yeah, I remember.
Schleicher. It's the one that confirmed by Dr. Richard Allen Miller that we did some shows with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. He discussed Schleicher and his wife working and trying to work all this out through uh, Stanford Research Institute, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And so she had a story to tell as well. Now, that other lady that you had on, she
Which lady?
talked
I
to
had
Dr. Richard Allen Miller's wife, Leona Miller. She
Yeah,
talked
she's
about,
with us. Yeah.
that's the woman that you and I know. There was Melinda, but before Melinda, there was another lady. Now, this is Jesse Marcel. Now, I met
Right. We're
him.
not going to cover. This is because we're out of time. This is our preview.
That's a whole show with
We're going
Dr.
to do this. We're not going to get involved with this right now. But I just.
Are you going to get Jesse Marcel Jr. to come on? Because I met his father.
You know, you
His
can
grandfather.
try to reach for me. We can. He was very, very busy. He's getting more and more famous, and he's working on
I
books.
bet. Yeah, everybody's
So
working on books, y'all. So,
Yeah,
well, we've got
that-
a lot to cover. And you want to talk to Dr. Stephen Greer, and you said his secretary got back in touch
yeah,
with
but let's not talk about that publicly right now. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That was a private conversation. So
Oh.
anyway, just
Sorry.
yeah. So I work on books, but I'm working on a cover for our Stargate. I haven't got that done yet. I'm working on this book.
These
right
look
now.
very fantastical fantasy, like Harry Potter's.
Yeah,
books
that's
or something.
kind of my life is
Fantastical.
fantastical. My life is Harry Potter. Yeah, it's very Harry Potter.
Let's see.
This is supposed to be me with my. This is my how I see myself with long red hair.
Yeah, I like red hair too, over blonde. I do.
And my hair is growing out, and I don't know what it is, and I keep wanting to go. I go, well, I'm 69. Should I color it again? Or, anyway, so this one I just published.
Heaven and
This
inner
covers
earth.
through the end of the 50s, and so basically, I'm tracking what happened in the world, what happened to other experiencers, contactees at this time, how they
That's
use
quite a
it, and
quest.
my personal stories. I have the personal, the interpersonal, the global, the universal. What's going on in the cosmos, and I tie them in this weave, and so and I keep saying I could do a book a decade, but every time I start going into it, it's like no. So the 50s ended up being 3 books. I've just started the 60s, and I think I'm going to have 3 books.
You know what's funny about dates you've got? Because October, but May 10th, 2017, you asked me about that day. That day is when we met with Andrew Bashago, Dr. Ken R. Johnston Sr., Dr. Sr.,
Yeah.
Tom from Norway, and even Billy Carson of Gaia
Right.
TV with Forbidden Knowledge was there. And all of us met. And that was my date, Janet. Think about it.
Your
May
date for-
10th, 2017. I'd had 50 years that day.
Oh my goodness! Wow. See, there's.
I'd flown in '87. I was in Washington, D.C. at the wherever Office of Personnel Management had our psychiatric evals and our polygraphs. On May 10th, 1987, I was in Washington, D.C. Think about it. And then 2017. And then May 10th, 67, when I was with the Spinnerets and at NASA, and was in the newspaper.
Your day.
It's amazing. They used that date, May 10th, 67, 87, and 2017, to close out all that I did and then to start marketing and public relations with you for everything we've been doing with extraterrestrials. To me, it's amazing how they do that interdimensionally.
What I would like to have to close is like, if you want to contact me, the best way to contact me is aquarianradio@gmail.com. I don't have that written here. What's the best way for people to contact you, Teresa?
I've got business.
No, just give me one.
But just TJ Marsh ACIR. Our agency is easy to remember. TJ Marsh Agency at gmail.com.
Okay, so
Or TJ Marsh
send
at
us-
Outlook.
if you have anybody we're going to start doing interview shows again once a week, probably on Fridays, and then Tuesdays we'll do our ongoing story. And so please contact me because I can get everything set up. Uh, what is it? aquarianradio@gmail.com. That's my original. We've done over what 10, 12 years, 13 years.
Yeah,
Show.
since June 3rd, 2012, we
Right.
began all the stuff with ascensioncenter.net, which you still have, and I'm going to be very involved in the evolution of the Ascension movement, which we
We're
started.
going to have to go because I have another appointment.
Okay.
But and we're trying to keep our shows down a little bit
So
around.
now it's easier to download on
It's easy to keep going, but
well, thank you for thank you for your devotion to this, Janet, to helping all of us.
So when I hang up here, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, don't hang up. I'm going to end the broadcast.
DJ Morris here.
Don't hang up. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. Okay, 1 second.